Well, good morning, Exeter. Thank you, Seattle, for that generous citation. I'm reminded of the old saying, if my father were here, he would be pleased. If my mother were here, she'd believe it. And thanks to Principal Rawson and to the committee that decided on me as the recipient of this year's John Phillips Award. When Wally Coxum, the Vice President of Trustees and the chair of the committee then, called me in Florida, my first reaction was, they must want a really big contribution this time. And then he told me of the award, and I was dumbfounded and humbled. Me, of all of Exeter's alumni now living, me. I was gratified beyond belief and so honored. Thank you again to all who made this possible. Now, as already been said this morning, it was 68 years ago that I was sitting down there as an entering upper. I was scared stiff. I was frozen. I was trying to move from the bush leagues of academia to the major leagues all-stars. And they say you can't cross a chasm except in a single leap. I proved them wrong because I fell right down to the bottom first. And then I crawled up erratically to a more solid ground. My background is different. Yes, I do come from Vermont, and in my 8th grade graduating class, there were 5 of us. There were about 50 of us in the local secondary school, all 4 grades, the 50. And I'm happy to say I was the best student of the 50, and then I failed all 3 of Exeter's placement tests. The first year was awful. I was located, incidentally, in Wheelwright. It was not nicely then described as Goon's Castle. I was nowhere in Latin, geometry, and chemistry. I didn't connect with my instructors or my fellow students. I was convinced that the Harkness method was an inefficient way of learning basics, but I wasn't in charge of teaching. I struggled through those courses. Exeter was supportive. I was not expelled because of poor grades. On the other hand, American history with John Mayhew was a pleasure, both in subject matter and his teaching. And one experience was valuable and long-lived. I was assigned to English 3 under the fabled H. Darcy Kerwin. He taught the section for the not-so-good students. We read Boswell on Dr. Johnson and a biography of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. And in the spring, on Saturdays, I want to mention Saturdays in case anyone has not heard of those days, we gathered each morning, we pulled out the slides, and he assigned us a topic on which we were to write for the next 50 minutes. I was happy one time to get a comment that said, "Not bad." And so I timidly asked Mr. Kerwin what that meant, and he said, "Not good." But to add perspective to the experience with him, in the next year as seniors, we were asked to answer a poll about the various faculty members and a few administrators. And if you leave out the administrators, Mr. Kerwin was voted most respected, most inspiring, most interesting in class, and I especially agree with this, hardest marker. In so many ways, Darcy Kerwin typified all that was good about Exeter back in those days. As time passed, I was less shy and a bit more successful. The senior was different. Studies were still hard, but I got honors and more friends and a more relaxed and confident me. Exeter was the best school I ever attended, period. Now, of course, we can't compare a secondary school with a research university, but we can find, first, comparisons with other secondary schools, and you know where Exeter comes out. Now and then, some people put "and" over there, but it's a typo, I believe. And second, we can reflect on Exeter's deep pedagogy on one hand, and broad scope on the other, and at the same time. That is a different world for most of us. How Exeter has changed. First comment, there wasn't a balcony. Second, this room was a lot larger back then, because as a shy person, you know, it seemed like it went down miles back there. But when I see Exeter has discovered women, students, faculty, staff, and I understand this has made the place more friendly, more accommodating, even more competitive with the girls' talents added. And Eric and I sat in a couple of classes yesterday. Oh my God. The fascination, but the abilities of the students, boys and girls, and what they are doing and what they are learning, and the quality of the instruction, so different from what you will find in colleges or graduate schools, where still so often you are told, sit down, listen, and I'll tell you the truth. Wouldn't it be easy if they did it that way? But how do you derive the truth? How do you find the truth? And Exeter teaches the methods that make that happen. I see that Exeter has discovered inclusion beyond gender, with more people of color. And just the other day, I read this quote from Governor Baker of Massachusetts. He was speaking at the inauguration of Harvard's new president. And the governor said, if I get the right thing, we learn from our differences. How true. Inclusion is more than doing right for people. It also benefits all of us. Because each of us, no matter our individual makeup, can find goodness and wisdom in those not precisely identical to you and me. I am one of those affected by inclusion because I'm a gay man, as has been pointed out. Sexual orientation continues to be controversial, oh, clearly less so than earlier, but in some geographic areas, some religions, political parties, families, etc., it is still a difficult subject. I was closeted all the time I was at Ford, although another executive once tried to out me. I was closeted because of my concern that I would be a controversial manager, and too much focus then would be on me rather than the business of Ford. But shortly after retiring, I outed myself. Okay. What's a good word for it? I was going to say by mistake. That's not quite right, but anyway, disorganized would be good. Eric and I, he was then my partner, he's now my husband, thank heavens for the rules, gave an interview to the local gay newspaper. We knew the publishers, and one of them came, and we took photographs, and oh, I was good looking. My face was gray, my shirt was gray, my pants were gray, the carpet was gray, and she had a camera, and I thought, oh, what's that for? Well, we had a few photographs taken. We hadn't prepared, and she started asking questions, and we mumbled our way through. And when she left, she said, you know, the mainstream media sometimes picks up our content. And I thought, well, that won't happen here because I'm now retired from Ford, year plus probably, and they don't care about me. Well, the mainstream media did pick up the story. And there we were on TV, front page of the local papers, phone calls, and our phone calls back, telling people who did not know of this and see what their reactions were. I remember nephew Doug sitting down here said, oh. I remember my brother said, I won't tell anybody. I I said, that's not the purpose of this, really. But Eric and I took this as an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons, to try to help the LGBTQ community. We joined boards and committees of gay organizations and straight allies. We hosted fundraisers. We supported building a new community center in the Detroit area, as has been mentioned. We've given money to local and national organizations, and this isn't to brag, because so many others have done all they could with a time or talent or treasure. And the need continues, especially for civil rights that both open opportunities and protect us. Now, I'm sure there are quite a few in this room who are gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender or questioning, and this may be a difficult time right now, or it may be a difficult time in the fairly near future, or maybe a difficult time even later. Because there's one ingredient. We come, almost without exception, from a family of heterosexuals. And we cannot learn from them what it is for us to be ourselves in this one key aspect of life. So it's the responsibility of all of us in the LGBT community to help you. It's the responsibility of the Academy to help. Eric and I met yesterday with members of the Gender and Sexuality Alliance, and it was a pleasure to learn from them and from the staff people who were there about the progress, the caring progress that is being made here. But, and this surprises a lot of people, it is governments at all levels that have done the least. Many businesses and nonprofits are supportive because they care, and because, at least for businesses, they want the customers. Allegedly, we're all rich, which is not quite accurate, regrettably. But there are customers, and they do buy cars, and they do buy other things too, and businesses want those kinds of customers. It's easy these days to despair about our democratic system. But we can do three things. First, work to fix that system. And if you are eligible, let's start by voting on November 6th. Second, work with businesses and NGOs to make sure they don't discriminate and support the efforts they do make. And third, work right here at Exeter to understand each other, to value each other. Returning to the Harvard inauguration, incoming President Larry Bacco said, and I quote, "Be quick to understand and slow to judge." The students here, all of you, have many years of education ahead before they join, finally, the real world, as we call it. No, it's no more or less real, it's just different. You'll gradually narrow your interests, probably change your minds several times, worry, finally decide what you want to do, and perhaps then change your minds over and over. Don't decide too soon, because you'll come across new and fascinating paths you never dreamed of. That was my Ford career. I just read a perfect summary by someone who retired from the auto industry, said, and I quote, "I had a career I never dreamed of." And that describes for me an interest in cars, talented colleagues, major scope, economic importance. Now, as in any big organization, Ford has a wide variety of things that must be done. Early on, I had no subordinates. I was down there. Later, I had 250,000. Early on, I prepared data for the board of directors. Later on, I proposed an acquisition, and the board rejected it. We had wonderful products: Mustangs, Thunderbirds, Lincoln Continentals, Explorers, Ford GTs, F-Series pickups, and some less wonderful that I'd best not mention. As you reflect on your future, please don't conclude that the honorable and important jobs are only in the professions, doctors, lawyers, accountants, professors, clergy, or in government work or in the NGOs. The private sector, business, provides 70% of the jobs in our economy. Business covers the whole world, the whole range of innovation and entrepreneurship, the whole range of industries and services. The great stories of this generation, Apple and Tesla and Amazon and Microsoft and Google and its relative Alphabet and Uber and Lyft and PayPal and Netflix and so many others, seize our attention and then our imagination. Can't we do similar things? And these are business enterprises driving economic growth, attracting the best of talent, and providing us customers with product and services we only dreamed about. Some will point out the failings of business. They're there. But businesses do not have a monopoly on bad behavior, or economic cycles, or the misreading of apparent trends that prove to be fads. There's plenty of blame to go around. I was proud of my Ford work, but I made mistakes. I oversaw a car product program that did not succeed in one of its 2 markets, and that was America. I sponsored a program rejected by the board of directors, as I mentioned earlier. To describe it a bit, Ford was a major defense contractor, and we thought a large acquisition in that field would add considerably to our portfolio, particularly in the area of electronics. The pitch to the board, the final decision maker, wasn't going smoothly, but I thought we'd still get approval. Jim Bennett, sitting down here, was a partner of McKinsey & Company, the famous management consulting firm, and he was with me in the boardroom as he presented the facts about this big acquisition. And we thought we'd succeed, Jim. But then out of the blue, a quiet director who ran a high-tech company said, and I quote, "I'd rather deal with the mafia than the Defense Department." There was silence in the room, no more comments, and we left the room, rejected and dejected. A smart speechwriter gave me this sentence for a conference where I spoke. "They say you can learn by your mistakes, but that does not mean the more mistakes you make, the smarter you are." And we read or watch with high interest the success of those new companies, particularly those started by young entrepreneurs in high tech. You can aspire to such work. The underlying basic research will probably be done in research universities or government labs, and some of you will work there and will make major contributions to basic knowledge. More of you will likely work to apply the outcomes of new research to new products and services offered by new or older companies, the opportunities you will face. Now, I was told not to preach this morning, but I do want to end with a few sermonettes. 1, pay attention to STEM, or to add an A for arts, STEAM. I didn't. A big mistake. Science knowledge is so important these days. I was visiting with Bill Ford, the chair of Ford Motor Company, a couple of years ago, and we were describing the fact of the need for scientific knowledge, engineering experience. And so we decided to describe our own careers in college where we learned those things. I studied the history of science. Bill at Princeton studied geology. And we said to each other, we are ill-equipped for what needs to be done these days. Now, that doesn't mean everyone's going into science, of course. At Wayne State, we decided that dance students did not need to master algebra. It probably wouldn't make a big difference in their careers. Second, your initial work will undoubtedly be deep and narrow. Expect that. They will not ask for your great thoughts on wither the world. They will ask for deep knowledge of specific subject matter. And for some, that'll be ideal, because as you continue, you'll end up as a master of that discipline. Now, others may want or choose a different experience, but you too will start narrow and deep. But you'll have the opportunities, if you choose, to widen and move up and have a broader perspective. But don't lose hope when you seek the breadth, but learn along the way, because the people at the top and various levels of top, if you will, have to have a lot of knowledge, and they have to have the breadth too. Next, the journalist H.L. Mencken wrote, "For every complex problem, there is an answer that is clear, simple, and wrong." Life is not simple. There are no shortcuts that work. And George Bernard Shaw wrote, "Some see things as they are and ask why. Others see things that never were and ask why not." Exeter, why not? We older types will watch your progress and success, and we'll proudly say that the person went to Phillips Exeter Academy. Thank you again for this tremendous honor. I will humbly and excitedly treasure it. Go Exeter.